I want to start off by welcoming everyone to Vice Mayor Larry Reid's community meeting here at the Councilmember Community of Small Schools, and to be thankful that our Mayor, Ron Dellums, has blessed us and continues to be an advocate for our communities, our schools, and particularly our young people.
I'm very pleased to be here with our distinguished member of the City Council, Larry Reid. It's a special pleasure to be here tonight with you. You know, I was thinking about, how would I start? Having been a guy whose politics were honed in the 60s against the backdrop of some brilliant leadership. One was a brilliant, prophetic black man. His name was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He made many statements during the time that he stood courageously in leadership. One of the statements he made was, the most revolutionary act that a people can engage in is to assert the full measure of their citizenship. I thought about that, and when I finally understood what he was saying, it was very simple yet quite profound. He said, if you seek significant change, then step forward boldly and assert your rights and prerogatives as a citizen and assume your duties and responsibilities as a citizen. So I welcome all of you here tonight in that context because you are asserting your citizenship. And thank you for being here. I'm going to talk about the budget and public safety and things that we're talking about here, but we live in a larger context. And we're only a few days away from a significant decision, in my opinion, a pivotal decision. I want to say several quick things about that. Number one, as a citizen of Oakland, as a citizen of California, as a citizen of the United States, and as a citizen of the world, I am troubled by the rhetoric that is now permeating this country. The rhetoric of the McCarthy era is totally inappropriate. Socialism, communism, un-American, unpatriotic are inappropriate words, dangerous words, and frightening words, but words that must be rejected by the people. Think about this for a moment. I was mentioning to a couple over here a few moments ago that I wish for a brief moment that I could have stood next to Senator McCain and said, Senator, we are supposed to be the great beacon of light. We're supposed to be the greatest democracy on the face of the earth. Then how can we decimate that process? How can we burlesque that process? How can we diminish that process in name-calling and challenging people's patriotism? What an incredible thing. What an incredible statement we are making to the rest of the world, looking at us carrying out this profound and sacred responsibility of participating in the democratic process. And then looked at him and said, now, what's your response? Because we have to reject that. The second point I want to make, and I want to make this particularly to the young people in this room. When I say young, I guess that's everybody in here but me. You young people, this is your moment. This is your moment to empower yourselves to take control of the future. Everybody is saying that if you, the youth of this country, stand up and get out there on the first Tuesday of November, you will change the course of history in America. And I challenge you to do that. Your civil rights movement, young people, has to be a movement that stands up and says, we have a right to inherit a world that is sustainable, a world that is worthy of us, and there are many threats to that. Global warming, global terrorism, global infectious disease, HIV and AIDS, and look at what's happening economically. The planet, the globe, is teetering on the brink of recession, teetering on the brink of disaster. Now, if that's not a national security issue, I don't know what is. So I want you young people and not so young people, get out there, change the course of history. These next 4 years, decisions will be made that will affect your lives in very powerful and profound ways. That leads me to this. With a global economy teetering on the brink of disaster, a national economy wavering, a state government that is asking for billions of dollars in loans just to meet payday, and Oakland looking at millions of dollars in deficit, something is tragically wrong. Things are changing. I wish that I could see far enough into the future to anticipate the impact of all of these changes. But in your heart of hearts and in your mind, everyone in here knows that we are living in a moment of great transition. Things are changing in a very powerful and profound way. And which direction that changes, what priorities we seek, become very important. Oakland doesn't exist outside of that context. Everything that happens eventually gets acted out on the ground in the Oaklands of America, because this is where we live and die, all right? Now, against that backdrop to the budget, you as citizens of Oakland need to know where we are. And in July, when we had the mid-cycle budget adjustment, my staff and I started looking at third and fourth quarter numbers, and we said, wait a minute, we're in worse trouble than we thought. So I said to you back in July, we would take 6 weeks in a very intense exercise to drill down into the numbers and to find out exactly where we are financially. The budget that I submitted to the council was based on the following principles. Because when you got to cut, you got to cut. It's logical that you can't keep providing services here when your money's here. That's just reasonable, all right? So what we said was, what will be the principles that will guide how we cut the budget? We said, to the maximum extent possible, let us not compromise public safety. And my definition of public safety is not just about crime and violence. We also in Oakland live on 3 earthquake faults. We have had fires. We have had other disasters. And we can't anticipate the future, right? So in the Bay Area, it's not whether we're going to have a disaster, it's only when. So public safety means a broad range of things that include the police, include the fire, include public works, how we deal with that. So we said, number one, let's not compromise public safety to the maximum extent that we can. Number two, we said, let's not harm essential services. Let's not close senior citizen centers. Let's not close libraries. Let's not close recreation centers. Kids need to be off the streets, need to have opportunities, need to have places where they could do their thing. We also said Oakland has more artists per capita than any city in America. So let's not harm arts and culture. Doesn't make sense. We need to grow that. And what did we learn in the cuts in the schools? When you start cutting arts and culture, that's the essence of the soul of the human being. Cannot exist without art and culture. That's the way we express an important part of the human spirit. So we said, no, you cannot do that. America's in trouble, the state's in trouble, and we're in difficulty. We're in for some dark times for a while. And so that means that we're not going to pull up out of this quickly. So we just need to get ready for the fact that these are the realities. And so we've got to figure out creative and exciting ways to develop partnerships and alliances that help us, because we're going to have to face these issues head on for the next couple of years. Now, that said, I just want to make a few comments about public safety. Every community deserves to feel that there's an environment that allows you to go about your daily lives with a sense of peace and security. That's fundamental to any civilized society, all right? So we made public safety due north. We made public safety number one priority.